So over the last 12 years of my time in sales, I've discovered 9 borderline manipulative psychology tricks, which I've used to generate over $23 million in sales for myself and well north of $200 million for my clients. Now, starting off strong here, the first trick is probably the most sinister out there, and it's called the labeling effect. And there's something fascinating about human psychology. When you label someone as something positive, they subconsciously try to live up to that label. Now, no matter if it's to do with their appearance, their demeanor, or their character, when it comes to things relevant to closing a deal with someone. So instead of diving straight into your pitch, try something like this. I can tell you're someone who really thinks carefully about their investments. Boom. What you've just did is activate their desire to prove that they really are thoughtful and strategic, and they're now more likely to engage thoughtfully with your proposition. And this is also effective because it compliments them and strokes their ego a little bit more. Number 2 is going to be loss aversion. This is pretty subtle, but you can't overlook this because it's extremely useful in the correct context. We feel pain as human beings twice as strongly as we do pleasure of gaining something. If you think about the last time that you lost something, you lost your phone, you lost your wallet, you lost your jacket somewhere, God forbid your laptop, and think about the last time you bought something. You feel more strongly about losing things than you do acquiring things. And that's why instead of just highlighting benefits and going line item by line item by line item of, oh, this was this is the benefit. You shouldn't do that anyway. But if you are highlighting benefits, you also want to explain what they're going to miss out on. Don't just say this will save you $500 a month. You should say every month you don't have this, you're leaving $500 on the table. Do you see the difference there? Like one tries to build desire, but it's pretty overused at this point, while the other creates urgency through potential loss. Kind of a side note, but a good way to gauge if something is really a good psychology trick for sales or copywriting is by reading the script or listening to whatever it might be and asking yourself, would I buy based on this? Or if I heard this in a conversation, would this push me more towards a purchasing decision or more towards not making a purchase? And my mentor, Myron Golden, one of the things that he teaches is he has a kind of an exercise where he says, like, what are your 2 biggest expenses in life? One is taxes. And the second one is not knowing the information to be able to produce X amount of revenue, right? For him, it's like $1 million in a day. So by you not investing in his program, essentially what you're saying is that it's a cost. You're paying that cost of not knowing how to generate $1 million in a 24-hour time period. So every year that you go on not knowing that information, you are essentially paying $1 million because you're not able to generate it and you're not having that information. So pain is a very important psychology hack that we use in sales. Now, number 3 is the consistency principle. Have you ever noticed how once someone says yes to something small, they're more likely to say yes to something bigger? Now, for example, have you ever noticed when you're at a restaurant and you only really want to get like a small fry, right? But the large fries are only a few cents more, so you decide to upgrade anyways. Or when you're checking out and the original product you're buying is $27, but then you get an upsell or a one-time offer for $57 put in front of you that you can't resist. Or have you ever read copy that's basically just a series of questions that get you to say yes? Now, I actually just did it right now to you with those things that are relatable to you. And you just mentally said yes to all 3 of those things. Now, this is why killer salespeople start with tiny micro commitments. They get the prospect nodding along with small, obvious statements like, would you agree that saving time on repetitive tasks would help your business? Once they've said yes a few times, they're psychologically more likely to stay consistent with that pattern of agreement, and you've successfully taken over their frame of mind so that they eventually get into a more towards state rather than a neutral or away state. Now, implement that into your sales. Ask and understand and formulate a couple of questions that'll get them to say yes, and then you're going to be started cooking with gas. If you structure your closing script or your setter script or your cold call script, the more you can optimize for the prospect to say yes or to come to an agreement with the things that you're saying. You can say obvious statements like that, and it's a psychology trick to get them in more of an agreeing state. It's easier for them, like, yeah, that's fair. Yeah, that's why in all our cold call scripts, we end with, does that sound fair? It's easy to say yes to. Moving on, number 4 is price anchoring. Now, this 4th trick is also something that you see a lot in marketing, and it has to be done believable. Way too often, people price anchor way too high, and it doesn't even make sense. Nobody believes that you're selling something for $347 that has the value of $20,000. It's just tacky. Understand what that's actually saying. Either you don't understand value or how valuable that thing is, or you're kind of an idiot for giving away something of high value for a low price point, and it actually devalues the information. Because if your perception of that is I'm willing to depart with this value for a low dollar amount, then I definitely don't actually value that information. But when you do this right, it's very powerful and honestly a bit manipulative when used wrong. Now, price anchoring actually works because your brain latches onto the first number, the law of resonance. And we hear that as a reference point. So if you're selling a 997 course, don't start there. Start by discussing the industry standard course of 5,000 or for similar training. Suddenly your price feels like a bargain. But remember, the anchor has to be realistic or you're going to lose the credibility in the prospect's mind. And before you say the price, it's expensive. So like, what does this cost? Like, yeah, it's expensive, right? It's $50,000 for blah, 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 blah. And understanding how to create value in a tier, right? In a ladder system, your value ladder and stacking value. And a really good way of doing this is throwing in bonuses. So if you purchase this thing at this price, I'm going to also throw in this thing, which costs this, and this thing that costs this, and this thing that costs this. So now instead of saying, oh, this is $50,000 worth of value, and I'm going to discount it to X, now you're saying that the price is this, and I'm going to throw in other things that you believe is valuable to increase the value versus devaluing the value of the price. So by the way, if this has been valuable to you in any way, I want to let you in on something. I have a group coaching program called the SDR Whisperer and the Closer Whisperer. That's where you can learn the fundamentals of sales from cold calling to setting to closing. We do live role plays every single week, and you can actually get directly coached by me on my weekly calls. All that so that you can become a complete weapon in sales. There's also a ton of trainings, videos, modules, and even more. The link's in the description if you want to check it out. The number 5th hack is the law of reciprocity. Now, let me explain exactly what that is. We as human beings are hardwired to want to return favors. That's how human beings are coded. When you ever walk into a door, right, a double door, if you hold the door open the first time around, that person is going to be inclined to open the next set of doors for you. And I guarantee you know what that feels like. If someone opens a door for you and there's another door in front of you, you automatically are going to open that door. You're not going to be a and just walk through the door and let it slam in the guy's face. And that's why free valuable content works so well. Hormozi does it. Everyone talks about it, but it actually comes down to that law. So here's the move. Don't just give something away. Give something personalized. If you're in a sales call and you notice they're struggling with something specific, send them a custom solution. Give them access to a mini course. Give them access to a lead magnet, or just share the thing that you screen shared, right? We have like an OT calculator where we help come up with a salesperson's commission and compensation structure. It's something that every single one of our clients needs help with. So instead of me gatekeeping that and saying, oh, I'll only help you when you pay me, I make it on the calls most time, or our salespeople do, and they just share that with them with their post-call follow-up. Like, hey, here's the actual document. So the work that we did together doesn't go to waste, and you now have this asset, and you can start to understand like, oh, wow, like if they're willing to give this away, what else are they willing to help me with? And when you present your offer, they feel almost obligated to seriously consider it because you've already given them something in return that they see and they perceive as valuable. Now, the same principle applies to actually getting people on sales calls. When really good setters and dialers ring people up, they frame it like they're signing a contract with the other person. They basically get a virtual handshake. They get the commitment from them to make sure that they show up. We send over pre-call materials once they have the call. We maybe do a Loom audit. Maybe we do a proposal, or maybe we send something of value. It stacks up. And when you actually provide value in the setting call, you're going to have more show rates and more deals closed. Now, the 6th hack is social proof. If you've been around in sales or marketing for any amount of time, you know about social proof, case studies and testimonials, but you probably don't know it like this. Because here's what most people get wrong about social proof. They just throw numbers. 500 5-star reviews, 1,000 satisfied customers. That's kind of amateur hour. Instead, create what I call a social proof stack. Start with broad statistics, then industry-specific proof. Use like credited case studies, or use like blog articles by HubSpot, or use something that someone can trust outside of you. You validate the things that you're saying by an outside entity. And then once you give them industry specific proof, then give them niche specific case studies that you've done from your own business so they can understand that you've helped someone just like them, and it builds a psychological fortress around your credibility. And you can just keep following up with people who haven't closed yet. You just make them aware of the people that are winning inside of your program or winning using your service or your product. One of my favorite follow-ups is like, hey man, since the last time that we spoke, this person salesperson, just like you, has seen this result in the time that you've not taken action? Are you ready to take the leap? Pretty simple follow-up. Now, if this video was a tiered list, right, this would be the A or the S tier, just because of how strong it is in sales and copywriting and life in general. Now, the seventh hack is going to be scarcity. Everyone knows that scarcity sells, but most do it wrong. True scarcity isn't just about limited time or spots. It's about limited identity. Instead of saying we only have 5 spots left, say we only work with 5 companies per industry to ensure personalized attention. Now, the guy who's helped me create this YouTube script and strategy, he only works with one person in a specific space. So I work in the sales space. He doesn't work with anyone else in the sales space. Like, think about that scarcity when he was closing the deal. Like, hey man, here's all my results. Here's all my case studies. Here's all my proof. We have an opening in your industry and niche, and we only take on one. So we can focus on you, and we're not creating competition. So do you want to be the salesperson in my business? I was like, well, yeah, if you did this for these other things, and I trust these other things to be true, I want you to do the same thing in sales, and I want to be the only one. I want that exclusivity. And now this specific example also preys on FOMO, the fear of missing out, or the urge to be better than others, and it crushes when used properly. Now, the 8th hack is going to be problem amplification. Now, for tip number 8, this is one that seems genuinely dark and evil at first, but if you take a closer look, if your product, coaching, course, service, whatever is good enough, then you have nothing to worry about using this. What most entrepreneurs are naturally good at is solving problems. And if you can solve someone else's problems, perfectly articulate that and tell them that they're going to be in good shape before you sell the solution, you need to make sure they feel the full weight of that problem. Now, here's the framework, right? First, get them to verbalize their current challenge. Then help them project that problem into the future. If this continues on for another year, another month, another quarter, what would that cost you? Now, once they've really felt and understood that pain point, your solution becomes not just attractive, but necessary. This is hands down one of the best techniques in sales. I have a bunch of videos on my channel if you want to check out more about that specific trick, but let's wrap up with trick number 9. Number 9 is the autonomy principle. People hate feeling pressured into decisions. People like to buy, they don't like to be sold. You probably heard that before. And they will love you if you make something their idea. That's why the most powerful close isn't a hard close at all. And if you've watched the movie Inception, they induce somebody into a dream, they enter into that dream, they work with the person in the dream to help create and manifest a feeling and a decision that they make to be their own. When the dream falls apart is because the brain feels like someone is making that decision for them, and then the dream collapses. So what you need to do is to make people think that they came up with the idea on their own, and then they believe it to be true. Now, after you've presented everything, you say something like, look, you know your business better than anyone. Now, based on what we've discussed, do you think that this could work for you? You're not pressuring them, you're empowering them to make their own decision while subtly reminding them of the value points and the pain points and the solutions that you've already discussed. This makes for a pretty easy close, and your customer or clients will actually love you and thank you at the end. They don't feel pressured. Those are my deepest, darkest sales tricks and tactics, but there's only so much that I can show you in a video like this, right? I've covered a few objections here. There's a lot more that you should know if you want to get ahead in your studies and your sales journey and make those big commission checks. So there's going to be a video that pops up on the screen somewhere. Click that, see the next video where I show you how to handle every sales objection in 17 minutes so that you can go ahead and become an absolute killer remote sales rep, make the money, have the freedom of time, location, and finances. That's what you actually want. This is why you've watched this entire video. Go watch that video, and I'll see you in the next one.